All right, welcome to Touchdown Talks. This is my reaction to the schedule release for 2025 for the NFL. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. But before I do that, actually, if you are here and you're enjoying the content, you're excited for the NFL season 2025, you want more reactions, more coverage, whether that be for fantasy or other things to do with games, please hit the subscribe button, leave a like rating, ding dong the notification bell so you don't miss any updates or further videos from me, and I'll get right to the video from now. So, starting off with week one, we have the schedule here. So, starting it off for Thursday night football, we will have the Eagles hosting the Cowboys, and then Friday night, tradition 2 years in a row here. We have the first international game in Brazil yet again on a Friday. This between the Chargers and the Chiefs. This game should do a pretty huge number because it's going to be the first game to be on YouTube exclusively. That'll be interesting. As far as I understand, as far as reporting has been, this game should be free on YouTube. So for everybody that's been unhappy about the NFL expanding to different streaming services and making it more costly, arguably, to actually be able to watch every single game for many fans, I understand that complaint. But at least with this, it's on YouTube. It's going to be free. So because of that, being that it's an international game, it's on an internationally used platform. It's between two teams that are division rivals. The Chiefs, who are well-known team, I think this game should do pretty good numbers, get pretty high views, and so I'm very interested to see how that goes. Of course, that is assuming it's free on YouTube, which, per the reporting I have seen out there, this one will be free on YouTube, and I think that's part of the idea. They want to test getting this to a wider audience, and of course, they're testing the market for just more and more streaming services going forward. Going through the rest of the slate for Sunday night, or for week one, sorry, for Sunday. The other games that we have during that day, really for the whole week, we've got a good amount of good division rivalry games, but it's not a full week of division rivalries. We do have some rivalries that are non-divisional, in just the sense of, for example, Buffalo and the Ravens. In Buffalo, of course, we got Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, those two top quarterbacks in the NFL and in the AFC of this generation, and so they've got a history of playing against each other, of course, in the regular season and the playoffs at this point. So that'll be an exciting first Sunday night game. And then the Monday night game will be the Bears hosting the Vikings. So I'm excited about that. Bears got a decent amount of primetime games, not a ton. Obviously, they weren't the greatest team last year, didn't have the greatest record, but having a quarterback in Caleb Williams, who was a former first-round pick, having some hype around the new head coach in Ben Johnson, also being in a big TV market in Chicago, that helps a lot as well for teams if you want to have more primetime games. So I'm excited for that game. And then if we move into week two, this one is a week that has some really great games. This is the first week on the schedule that I think the NFL schedule makers made a slight mistake as far as deciding primetime games. I don't know. I mean, there are a lot of good ones to pick from here, so I can't fault them too much. But obviously, to start out the week up here at the top, you have the Packers hosting the Commanders. That one should be an exciting one. You've got Jaden Daniels in his sophomore year after a historic rookie season going up against the Packers with Jordan Love and with Matt LaFleur as head coach. That one should be an exciting game. These are both teams that made it to the play. That were in contention for the playoffs. That were both around that caliber. Both were actually fighting for relatively same positioning in the wild card last season. So, these are two good teams that should be good going forward. So that'll be a good start off for the week. The Thursday night schedule is one that this year I think we've seen ever since Prime got into the Thursday night game. It started out kind of mediocre for a lot of the games, but really this year, even 2024 a little bit, we've seen the NFL do a little bit better of giving Al Michaels and Prime a little bit better games to go over. Of course, Al Michaels and Kirk Herbstreit on the call for those games for Prime. But so that one should be a good one to start it off for the week. And then you get some good ones in here. But a lot of run of the mill games, non-division games. You do have a division game in Cleveland at Baltimore, and then you've got the Super Bowl rematch, which an odd spot for this game. It's of course another thing I did notice this year is the NFL seems to be prioritizing the late afternoon evening slot on Sunday as well for Fox and CBS. Between the crews for Tom Brady and for Tony Romo and stuff with CBS, between those two crews in the late afternoon, the NFL schedule makers seem to have been prioritizing those slots as well a little bit. So yeah, one of the games that Fox gets is the Super Bowl rematch in Kansas City on week 2. That's a game that I'm surprised wasn't a primetime game. I'm surprised they didn't put this in Thursday, Sunday, or Monday, or Sunday night. Sunday night does end up being the Falcons at the Vikings, which, I mean, would be interesting if it were Kirk Cousins starting and it was a Kirk Cousins return to Minnesota game, but most likely it's going to be Michael Penix Jr. starting for Atlanta this season. Of course, who knows what's going to end up happening with Kirk Cousins. At least as of right now, the Falcons seem more than happy to just start the season with him as their backup. They don't seem to, there hasn't been any trade partners they've been able to work out yet. Nothing of that sort. So, I don't know. I just, without Kirk Cousins playing in this game, which I doubt he would end up playing in this game, I don't really see why Atlanta and the Vikings was chosen for week 2 as the Sunday night game. Again, Packers Commanders, that makes sense as a primetime game. And then Monday night you got the Buccaneers and the Texans, which, okay, those were both playoff teams this past few years. So I can understand that. 2 playoff worthy teams, contenders, even this year they should be from opposite conferences, so they're teams that aren't going to that don't get to play very often. So sure, that makes sense as a good game for this week. And then also, of course, this is one of the few weeks of the season that'll be a Monday night doubleheader. So you'll also have the Raiders and Chargers in Las Vegas. That one will, of course, be interesting, especially for the fact that the Raiders will be one of those teams that will be really interesting to watch at the start of the season now that they've got Pete Carroll as the head coach, Geno Smith as the quarterback. You've got Ashton Genty now at running back, so a lot of excitement there. So I'm excited to see Pete Carroll up against Jim Harbaugh, and see how Ashton Genty is doing by week 2 in the NFL. But I don't know. Another game that it's a division rivalry at least, and the Chargers have been in the playoffs consistently since they've been contenders. Certainly now that Jim Harbaugh's there, you expect them to be a contender going forward. But I don't know, because the main things that are head scratching to me is again the Eagles Chiefs game. I'm very surprised that's not in a primetime slot, which tells me that they are very much focusing on that Fox game of the week and CBS's time slot for that late Sunday as well. I think that might be something that the NFL is trying to do, is give them more priority there as well. But the other game that stands out to me anyways that I kind of thought was going to be a primetime game or even a late Sunday game that, maybe CBS could do, or Fox does have this game. The one that surprises me is the Bears at the Lions. Again, I understand that might sound rich coming from a Bears fan. Bears will have just played primetime the previous week against the Vikings, so I can understand that. Obviously, don't maybe want to give the Bears too many primetime games. They did end up with 4 primetime games, so I get it. I'm not saying that the Bears should have necessarily had more primetime games, but this one's one of the Bears games that I would have expected to be in primetime, because this is going to be the Ben Johnson return to Detroit, now as a head coach, with Caleb Williams, with all the offensive linemen that the Bears added, Loveland that they drafted at tight end, all the hype that's around the Bears and what they've added. Of course, for the Lions, you're going to have the storyline of how are the Lions now going to look having lost Ben Johnson and their defensive coordinator, who is now head coach of the Jets. That was a game coming into this season. I was expecting at least one of the Bears-Lions games to be a primetime game. The final of those two will be all the way in Week 18, so who knows if both the Bears-Lions are relevant or they have some seeding stuff that's relevant. Maybe that gets flexed into a primetime slot at the end of the season, but I'm just surprised that this one wasn't in primetime or in one of those later slots. I mean, again, the Sunday night slot with the Vikings and the Falcons, fine, but that's the other thing is the Falcons got a decent amount of primetime games as well. I'm kind of surprised how many they got. They got like multiple Sunday night games, and I don't know. I guess the schedule makers expect them to be competitive for the NFC South, which NFC South has been a pretty winnable division the last few years. Of course, even saying that, the Buccaneers have pretty much dominated and actually won the division most years, basically since they got Tom Brady and now Baker Mayfield. But even with that, it's still been a division that's won by a pretty low overall record for a season. But I don't know. I'm not sure that I buy the hype of what's going on with the Falcons. I do think Michael Penix showed promise, so there's that too. But we didn't see a ton of him last season. And again, Falcons, Vikings getting prime time, and even the Buccaneers Texans game, those two games getting prime time over, Chiefs Eagles, the Super Bowl rematch, and the Ben Johnson revenge game or return to Detroit. I don't know. To me, that seems weird. Those seem like odd picks, but nonetheless, we'll move on to Week 3 now. So for Week 3, we'll start off with the Bills hosting the Dolphins. I think the schedule makers didn't do the Dolphins any favors here because, of course, early on in the season, if I'm a Dolphins fan, player, whatever, and I want to take as much advantage as I can with the climate of being in Miami where it can be hot, I would want as many home games as I could earlier on in the season. I know this is a primetime game, so it'll be in the evening anyways. Sun will be setting during the game, so I get that the heat maybe won't play as much of a factor for this game anyways, had it been in Miami. But yeah, to have it up in Buffalo beginning of the season, obviously the weather will actually probably be pretty nice, but really for both teams, for Buffalo, if you have the game at home late in the season, you could force the Dolphins to come to your place where it's cold, which we know the Dolphins don't do too great in cold. And again, vice versa, them at home, they have a stadium that gets a lot hotter than what many teams are going to be acclimated to normally. So if I'm Miami, I would prefer to have a decent amount, at least some games at home earlier on in the season when it's still going to be hot in Miami. For the Dolphins, didn't get any favors there, but that's Thursday night. Certainly a good one for Thursday. There's honestly a lot of good matchups in this one. Even in just the early slot on Sunday, you've got Rams at the Eagles. Of course, that was a playoff matchup. The Rams were actually the team out of anybody in the NFC in 2024. The Rams were the closest to actually beating the Eagles. They were really only one drive away from beating the Eagles, and they got really close. And I mean, had they beat the Eagles, the Rams might have won the Super Bowl. To be honest, at least what I wouldn't have been surprised if they had made it. Um, but yeah, so that'll be an interesting game, a rematch of that. And then, obviously to me, Cowboys at the Bears stands out. A game that I've been considering possibly going to. I don't know that I will. I think towards the beginning of the season I might be a little busy, so I might not end up going to this one. But if I do go to any game this season, this one's a possibility. And that's the Bears getting not a primetime game, but a later. Bears and Cowboys, obviously. Cowboys being in this game helps a lot. I mean, these are two teams that are some of the biggest. I mean, between these two, Chicago and Dallas, that's two of the bigger TV markets and brands for the NFL together. So makes sense that they got at least a Sunday afternoon or late afternoon slot at 4:25 Eastern time start. So that'll be in Chicago. That one's exciting, at least for me. And then for the primetime slot, it will be the Chiefs at the Giants. I don't know. I mean, it'll be interesting in the sense that it'll be week 3. Obviously, there's a lot of questions around what the Giants quarterback situation is. I mean, them and the Browns, very odd, interesting quarterback rooms. Very, very crowded. A lot of new faces in there, including veterans and rookies. But so yeah, I mean, for the Giants, I would expect by week 3 it's still going to probably be Russell Wilson starting. I would assume for the Giants it's going to end up being Russell Wilson starts. You'll also have Jameis Winston there, maybe. That's the thing, I don't know. They've got more quarterbacks than they're going to keep, obviously. But assuming they were to keep Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston, and obviously Jackson Dart, who they drafted, I would guess they start Russell Wilson to begin the season, and then, have him and Winston there to mentor Jackson Dart. And then, depending on how things go, I wouldn't be surprised if we see Jackson Dart start at least sometime in the season, but only 3 weeks in, I think it'll still be Russell Wilson. So we'll have Russell Wilson and the Giants, with a full staff of, head coach, general manager, who are definitely on a hot seat coming into the season. And they'll be hosting the Chiefs. So that'll be a tough out at home under the bright lights Sunday night. But I don't know. So maybe that one will be interesting. That or the Chiefs will clobber them. I don't know. There are some fair concerns for the Chiefs. Lost a lot of pieces on the offense and defensive line. Of course, they added some, but the Super Bowl, that was a big concern. And one thing for the Giants is they do look like they've built a team that could be a lot better in the trenches on both sides this year, and especially on defense, which was something that the Eagles were able to use to give Mahomes and the Chiefs a lot of problems in the Super Bowl. So maybe the Giants are able to make this interesting at home for that home crowd in New York. And then Monday Night Football. This will be just one game for week 3. That's the Ravens hosting the Lions. That one should be a pretty good game. Honestly, for the primetime games in week 3, that's the most exciting sounding to me. So that's always good. I always like having the good games, either Sunday, Monday, towards the end of the week. Of course, Thursday night games as well. I really like Al Michaels, so I enjoy when he and Kirk Herbstreit are able to get an actually entertaining game to start us off. So for week 4, this one's at least a division rivalry game. We've got Arizona and Seattle. I honestly think the Cardinals, there's been a lot of talk about their draft being good, their off-season being good. I think a lot of people expect the Cardinals could be much better. I think the NFC West is going to be interesting. I think the Rams are still going to be good. I think the 49ers, of course, with their schedule, I'll pull up their full schedule later, but 49ers have the easiest schedule in the league this season, one of the easiest schedules in years, and of course that's based off of strength of schedule which is basically just how did every team you're going up against do last year. So I don't know, strength of schedule going into it. I don't know. I think is a little overrated around this time of year when the schedule's coming out, but it is still interesting to look at how easy the 49ers schedule seems. So I think they'll be much better as far as record goes, at least. And then, Seattle, I think they could be interesting. So NFC West, I think, could be a very interesting teams. Obviously, the favorites are going to be the Rams, 49ers. Those would be my favorites for the division. But Seattle, Cardinals, certainly I wouldn't be surprised if either of these teams was a wild card or maybe even surprised us and won it. But again, it's a division rivalry game early in the season when everybody's still got hope anyways. So that one could be a fun one to start off week 4. Going into the Sunday slate of other stuff, not a whole lot of crazy games. Early Sunday, you do have the Eagles at Tampa Bay. That one could be an interesting one. And then you got getting into the late Sunday slate. This will probably be with Tony Romo and Jim Nantz on the call. This will be the Chiefs hosting the Ravens. Obviously a non-division rival there with Patrick Mahomes and Lamar going at it. And then for Sunday Night Football, it'll be the Cowboys hosting the Green Bay Packers. So obviously that'll get plenty of views. Also in Dallas, that'll be a big game. That'll be pretty fun to watch. Monday night, I don't know, not the most exciting Monday night slate in my opinion. We have the Dolphins hosting the Jets. I don't know. That one doesn't do a ton for me. And then the Broncos hosting the Bengals. I think that one could be pretty interesting. I think the Bengals should be pretty good. I have questions about the defense still. Bengals, I wouldn't be surprised if they're yet again a team that's in a lot of shootouts. So that'll make games of theirs at least entertaining. And we'll also have to see if they have their seemingly annual tradition of starting really slow, losing games that they shouldn't. Obviously, for Bengals fans, that's something you hope isn't the case this year, but if it is, that could bode well for the Broncos. It'll be in Denver, so that'll help as well for Denver. And of course, you got Sean Payton, you got Bo Nix, who I think is, showed some promise in his rookie year. Didn't necessarily have the best rookie season last year, but not the worst also for the quarterbacks. And Sean Payton, obviously we know his resume as a head coach in the NFL. So moving on to week 5, this would be towards the beginning of October. We start off with the Rams hosting the 49ers. That one should be a really good Thursday night game. I think that might be the best primetime game so far on the schedule at that point. Some other games on Sunday, you got the Eagles hosting the Broncos, the Ravens hosting the Texans. I think that one could be good. And then when you get into the Sunday late slate, you have the Bengals hosting the Lions. That one could be good. That'll be on Fox. Assumably Tom Brady on the call for that one. And then Sunday Night Football will be the Bills hosting the Patriots. At least it's a division rivalry game. Of course, Patriots could be interesting. You've got Mike Vrabel there now. You got Drake May in his second year. I also think he has potential from last year's quarterback class. And of course, going up against Josh Allen and the Bills. So that one should be interesting. Obviously, the Bills have had the better of that rivalry recently, but that'll be in Buffalo again. So that'll be the second primetime game that Buffalo will have had at home so far in only 5 weeks. And then Monday Night Football will be the Jaguars hosting the Chiefs. I think this one could be all right. Certainly interesting. Of course, you got Travis Hunter that was drafted, so seeing the Jaguars in primetime finally will be nice to see. I almost feel like the Jaguars, just because of getting Travis Hunter, would have liked to see them in a late game or a primetime game sooner, but they are the smallest TV market team in the NFL, the smallest brand or one of them. So, unfortunately for Jaguars fans, you're not a team that generally is going to get very many primetime games unless you're a super good team, which unfortunately last year or so they've kind of taken a couple steps back. Obviously, Trevor Lawrence, this will be another year that people want to see some improvement from him. He's kind of stagnated and even gone backwards a little bit the last couple years in his career. But that could be a good game. Of course, it's another Chiefs primetime game. Chiefs do have the most primetime games this year out of anybody. That's 7, more than anybody had last season, at least to start the season. So yeah, that'll be an interesting week for Week 5. Week 6 we have, and also I should mention Week 5, of course, will be the first week that we have some teams on byes. That'll be the Falcons, Bears, Packers, and the Steelers. So then for Week 6, we will have the Giants hosting the Eagles. So another primetime game for the Giants at home. So that's interesting. They keep getting some primetime games at home. In New York, of course, makes sense. But yeah, Giants-Eagles, this will be another rematch and revenge game for Saquon Barkley. I don't know. I just can't believe that the Giants let him go. And of all teams to pick him up, it was the Eagles. That's going to be haunting Giants fans for a long time. So I'm sorry if you're a Giants fan to bring it up like that, but, that's just how it is. That's how it is in sports. But so you have that game on Thursday night. That one should be an interesting one. Interesting division rivalry game. To start off, Sunday morning, we'll have the first slate in the Europe international games for this year. This one will be in London, and it'll be the Jets hosting the Broncos. So an international game for both. So that'll be early morning for those of us here in the U.S. Could be interesting. I don't know. The international games are always weird. It's so hard to know what to expect out of either team going into those games, just because there's so much variance to the week leading up to it for these teams. It's just so hard to predict. It's more of a neutral site for both teams. So yeah, there'll be that to start off Sunday. Other interesting games: Rams at the Ravens, and then Bengals at the Packers. That one should be a good one, maybe a high-scoring game. And then the Lions at the Chiefs. That'll be a good Sunday night. Monday night, I'm kind of excited. This one will be Bills at the Falcons. Whatever. I don't know. Again, the Falcons don't really excite me too much going into the season. Maybe I'll be wrong. They very well might be contenders in their division, which could help. Maybe Michael Penix will be really good, or there'll be drama we can be following between him starting versus Cousins starting. I don't know. But other than that, again, the Falcons don't really excite me right now going into the season. But of course, this will be a doubleheader. The one that I think most will be more excited for, including myself, not just because I'm a Bears fan, will be the Bears at Commanders. This will, of course, be a rematch of the game they had last year that ended with the Hail Mary. Didn't go well for the Bears. It really started the Bears' spiral into just nearly endless losses last season. They had an okay start to the season before that, and then they lost that game. There was tons of drama around that week. The following week, a lot around Tyreek Stevenson, the coaching staff, that kind of stuff. And then from there, it just, week after week for the Bears, it just unraveled last year. And so that game obviously will be a huge one. I mean, Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels getting drafted so high right next to each other in the draft. Obviously, as long as both of those two are starting in the NFL, anytime they play against each other, it's going to be an interesting storyline to be able to compare the two. So I'm really excited for that game. And then for bye weeks, we've got the Vikings and the Texans on a bye in week 6. For week 7, we've got the Bengals hosting the Steelers on Thursday night. So that'll be a good division rivalry, AFC North for Thursday night. You've got other good ones in the Vikings and Eagles. That'll be earlier on in Sunday. That one could be a fun one to watch. You got Commanders at Dallas. Assuming Dallas is good, which I do think I don't know. I'm certainly not as high on the Cowboys right now as Cowboys fans are, of course, but I do think I don't know. I've doing more research into what moves they've been making, some of which so far this season didn't excite me in the moment, but I do think some of the moves they made, especially in the draft and other things, I do think they've got some chances. Of course, the biggest one that gets talked about right now is also the trade they made for George Pickens. I know there's hype around them having him and CeeDee Lamb on offense. I don't know. For the Cowboys, I still have questions that you didn't really get much better in the run game, as far as I can tell. You lost some pieces on some veterans on the offensive line. You got some new running backs, but they're towards the end of their career. Both were averaging under 4 yards a carry last season. So I just don't know. I don't really buy Dallas's improvement. I also don't know that I would personally be all that hyped in the new head coaching hire they've got. Could be surprised, but either way, this is a division rivalry game. It'll be in Dallas with the Commanders and Jaden Daniels, so should be interesting enough. That's a later Sunday game. And then primetime, this is the second Sunday night game for the Falcons. Almost like the third primetime game they will have had in 3 or 4 weeks at this point. They will be going to San Francisco against the 49ers. That'll be interesting. I would expect right now that I would pick the 49ers. As a matter of fact, you can see right here the line right now for that game is 49ers favored -6.5. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Again, I'm not really sure why the schedule makers put the Falcons in so many primetime games. And then Monday night, we've got another doubleheader. This one being the Buccaneers at the Lions, and then the Texans at the Seahawks. I think both those games could be interesting. Really, all teams that, minus maybe the Seahawks, that I wouldn't be surprised if they made the playoffs. Although even the Seahawks, as I said, I wouldn't be surprised if they got in as a wild card team this year. And then bye weeks will be the Bills and the Ravens for week 7. Not a bad week to have a bye week towards the middle, early middle. And then starting off week 8, we have the Chargers hosting the Vikings. That one should be a good one for prime time. Bears at the Ravens will obviously be one I'll be watching earlier in the day. And then Sunday Night Football, Steelers hosting the Packers. Could be interesting. This game and a lot of the Steelers games that are in primetime or later slots very much seem like they were scheduled based off schedule makers hoping and expecting that Aaron Rodgers is going to end up signing with the Steelers. That's still yet to happen. I honestly, at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if Rodgers waits till training camp to sign with them, or mid-July, early August. I wouldn't even, preseason, beginning of preseason. I wouldn't be surprised if we have to wait a bit longer for this signing between the Steelers and Rodgers. I don't know what's taken so long, but Rodgers is a unique kind of guy. Obviously, towards the end of his career, I'd be really curious to know what he actually thinks of the Steelers' moves, whether that be their draft or trading for DK Metcalf and then trading away George Pickens, which I think is actually a good move by them, but I don't know what he's going to think about all those moves and where he's at with football. But obviously, this game right here, Steelers hosting the Packers, would make sense why the schedule makers would put it theirs, because if the Steelers do have Aaron Rodgers as their starting quarterback, this very well might be the final time we see Aaron Rodgers play against his former team. So, hopefully he ends up with the Steelers, so this game's interesting. If not, this game becomes way less interesting. And then Monday night, we will have the Commanders visiting the Chiefs. This one should be an interesting, exciting game there. Two pretty good quarterbacks, one much more new than the other. And then a lot of bye weeks here as we get into the middle of the season, of course. We got the Lions, Raiders, Rams, Cardinals, Seahawks, and Jaguars on a bye. For week 9, we've got Miami in prime time, this time hosting on Thursday night again. And that's 2 Thursday nights for them. This time against the Ravens, so not the easiest slate of games for prime time for the Dolphins. And then starting off Sunday, top of the list, Bears at the Bengals. That one very well may be a tough game. That one's certainly one of the games that I'm more nervous for the Bears. Of course, currently Bengals are favored -3. Of course, all these lines were months out, but those lines do show obviously who is going to be the general underdog at the moment, which the Bears makes sense. But they've played the Bengals pretty close in some of their recent encounters in recent years. But, of course, two teams that don't play very often, though, because of being in different conferences. And then Vikings at the Lions. Kind of surprised this is in a earlier Sunday slot, but you also got the Texans hosting the Broncos in that early slot. I think that one could be a good game. And then you've got for late Sunday, this will be on CBS, Jim Nantz and Tony Romo. They've called most of the games in this matchup since Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes got to the respective teams. So that one will be fun. I think all except for one game between these two has been covered by that CBS crew. So that'll be fun. Of course, I know some people don't love Tony Romo's broadcasting, but it has gotten better over the years, certainly. Commanders hosting the Seahawks on Sunday night. That one could be a good one. Commanders favored 5.5 right now. That one's a line that I could see changing, getting a little closer, but at the same time, I definitely am more confident in the Commanders going forward this season than I am the Seahawks at the moment, but that's all just based off how they did last year, so things can change. And then Monday night, we'll have the Cowboys hosting the Cardinals. Don't have a lot to say about that one. That one's kind of we'll have to wait and see if that's any good of a game, in my opinion. And then Browns, Jets, Eagles, Buccaneers have their bye weeks in week 9. And then we get to week 10, and we have Thursday night, we've got the Broncos hosting the Raiders. And I failed to mention some of these past weeks, we've had some international games go by in these early slots. Another one here, we've got a game in Berlin. This one will be the Colts hosting the Falcons. Of course, neutral site game in reality. Bears hosting the Giants. That one's exciting for me in the sense that it might be a more easy game. And then Dolphins hosting the Bills. Vikings hosting the Ravens. Those could be good early on in Sunday. In the later slot for Fox, actually, in that 4:25 slot, you've got two good games here. I'm not sure what they're going to end up choosing as America's game of the week, but 49ers hosting the Rams and then Commanders hosting the Lions. Both of those could be really exciting. Sunday night, you got the Chargers and the Steelers. I don't know. I mean, again, this is another one that hinges on Aaron Rodgers as far as being as interesting as possible. Monday night, Packers hosting the Eagles. That one could be an exciting one. And then bye weeks, we have the Bengals, Cowboys, Titans, and the Chiefs. And then as we go into week 11 here, so start off for Thursday night. This is probably the weakest Thursday night we've had so far on the schedule. Patriots hosting the Jets. It is a division rivalry, but for obvious reasons, that one's not the most exciting sounding game. And then we have a game in Spain, continuing the international slate. That's the Dolphins hosting the Commanders. And then some other interesting ones. Vikings hosting the Bears. And then that'll be the second matchup for those two for the year. And then, towards the later half we get some more division games. Cardinals, 49ers here. You get the Browns and the Ravens. You'll get Broncos and the Chiefs. So a lot of later afternoon rivalry games there. And then for primetime, it'll be the Eagles and the Lions. So two top dogs in the NFC going at it. And a rematch of the playoffs. And then rounding out the week, you've got the Cowboys at the Raiders in Las Vegas. Could be interesting. Again, new coaching staffs for both teams. Ashton Genty on the Raiders. I know Cowboys fans were one of the fan bases that were somewhat hoping to get Ashton Genty. They would have obviously had to trade up to get him, but yeah, so that one could be a good game. And then the two bye weeks, we have the Colts and the Saints. And then going into week 12, we have C.J. Stroud and the Texans hosting Josh Allen and the Bills on Thursday night. That one should be a really fun game for Thursday night. For my Bears, of course, it's hosting the Steelers. Could be an interesting Bears-Steelers matchup if Aaron Rodgers is there. Not interesting in the way that I want necessarily, but yeah, we all know that Rodgers' well-known history with the Bears. I'm not going to say it, but he's on a new team now. He's two teams, assuming he's with the Steelers, he's two teams after. If he's not with the Steelers, this is just a rare matchup between the Bears and the Steelers that we don't get often. That'll be about all the excitement there if Rodgers isn't in it. Vikings at the Packers. This one should be a good one. The Cowboys and the Eagles going at it later in the day. For Sunday Night Football, you got the Rams and the Buccaneers. These two teams have met a few times in recent years, competed against each other in the playoffs, so that one could be a good one. And then Monday night, you got the Panthers visiting the 49ers. Not the most exciting sounding game. One of those games that is part of why the 49ers schedule is seen as being so easy. But hey, at least it's a Christian McCaffrey revenge game, I guess. But I mean, he's been with the 49ers now for 2-3 years now, so I don't know. And then bye weeks, you got the Broncos, Dolphins, Chargers, and the Commanders. And then going into week 13, this will be Thanksgiving, Black Friday. So, of course, we start off with our Thanksgiving slate. Start off the day, of course, with the Lions, as always, this year hosting the Packers. And then you've got the Cowboys hosting the Chiefs. That'll be towards the middle, late afternoon for you. And then to round out Thanksgiving night, as we're all full and stuffed from eating, that will be Ravens hosting the Bengals. So that one should be an exciting one. Pretty good Sunday slate, honestly. Sunday. Pretty good Thanksgiving slate. We've had some years certainly where some of the games, including maybe the Lions or the Cowboys, in recent years, maybe not always the most interesting. Sometimes that's Thursday night game on Thanksgiving. Sometimes that one's kind of random, not as great, but I think we got a pretty good slate for Thanksgiving this year. And then for the Black Friday game on Amazon Prime, we have the Bears visiting the Eagles, so I'm very interested about that one. Obviously, the Bears look like massive underdogs at the moment, but certainly an interesting one as a Bears fan. I mean, this is one that if the Bears are going to show any sign of improvement, this isn't necessarily a game I'm expecting the Bears to win, but it would be good to see the Bears have some success against a really good team like the Eagles. And yeah, that'll be a Black Friday game. And then going into Sunday for that week, you've got, some okay games. Nothing really crazy that sticks out to me, honestly, on Sunday. The Sunday night game, Commanders, Broncos, I think that one deserves to be there. Honestly, probably one of the most interesting for Sunday that week. And then Monday night, we'll have the Giants and Patriots going at it in New England. This one could be all right. I don't know. I mean, on the week of Thanksgiving, I don't expect too many great games to be left by the time we get to Sunday night and Monday night, but those will be all right. And then we get into week 14. Beginning of December, you've got the Lions hosting the Cowboys to start us off, and then you got the first game between the Bears and the Packers for the season. So exciting there for myself, anyways. In Green Bay, and then Vikings at the Commanders. That one could be good. Of course, with the Vikings, especially by this point in the season, the Vikings are going to be interesting or not interesting, depending on how J.J. McCarthy looks. If he comes in and is good, and again, by all accounts and signs, it seems like the Vikings with Kevin O'Connell, who is a pretty good coach, offense, and I know a lot of quarterbacks like him. They obviously like J.J. McCarthy. They've moved in directions this last year or so, especially with letting Sam Darnold go to the Seahawks, that they seem confident that J.J. McCarthy's going to be a franchise-worthy quarterback for him. So if he's able to be a good rookie, the Vikings still could be interesting here hosting the Commanders, but currently the line, over a half a year away from this. The line right now is Commanders favored by 1.5, so that could change in any which way by then. But most likely, if anything, if I had to guess, moves in the Commanders' direction. But who knows? Maybe Jaden Daniels has a sophomore slump this year. You never know, especially with how great of a rookie season he had. It wouldn't really be that much of a slump to go slightly down from that. But later on Sunday, we got the Bengals at the Bills. That one should be an exciting one. Probably a high-scoring game. And then the Chiefs hosting the Texans for Sunday night. That one will be a good one. And then rounding out the week in Los Angeles, the Chargers hosting the Eagles. So that one could be fun. And then bye weeks, you got the Patriots, Giants, 49ers, and the Panthers. Going into week 15, we're middle of December at this point. Things are getting pretty cold. Of course, already at this point, it's going to have been getting more brisk at some of these stadiums. But Thursday night, we've got the Buccaneers hosting the Falcons. I'm sorry. I've ratted on you for being in primetime, and then there you go. I stumble trying to say the word Falcons. I don't know. Again, this is another primetime that the Falcons got. To be fair, of course, the Falcons being in Atlanta, another decent-sized TV market. So, of course, that's going to help the Falcons with primetime games as well. similar to how it does the Bears as well. But I don't know. Again, this one makes sense though to me. It's a later season game. It's a division rivalry game for the NFC South, which again, to me, the most likely uh, outcome for that division is that either the Buccaneers win it or maybe the division is stolen away by the Falcons. So if both teams are competitive, at least relative to their division, maybe this game all the way in week 15. I mean, at this point, we'll have playoff pictures starting to come into form. So this game if both these two teams are interesting and relatively close in record, this could be very much a game that has impact on seeding for the playoffs. Sunday, my Bears will host the Browns. That one's an interesting one, at least as far as that's one that I feel like the Bears should hopefully be able to win by that point in the year. Of course, by this point in the year, also with Caleb Williams, barring any injuries or anything crazy like that, by this point in the season, I'm going to have made up my mind, and I'm sure most will by that point, on whether or not Caleb's got it in the NFL. I know it's unfair, but that's just kind of how it is for quarterbacks these days, especially if you're drafted early and there's a lot of expectations for you coming in. By Thanksgiving, December of year 2, again, barring outside of missing a bunch of time due to an injury or something, most people are going to have made up their mind at that point whether or not that player is going to be a franchise quarterback. And from all reporting and accounts, insider accounts, that's how a lot of teams operate too. Even if they might keep that quarterback for maybe one more year, by the final third, fourth quarter of the season in year 2, most teams are going to have made up their mind on that younger quarterback. Also on Sunday, Bengals Ravens. I'm surprised this wasn't a primetime game. Do have some good matchups this week here, week 15, but this one's another one that I'm semi-surprised that's not there in some of these primetime slots. But we also got to remember, by week 15, this is a week that, who knows what's going to be the landscape of the league at this point. And this is the point of the season where primetime games start getting flexed in and out a lot. So what games are in primetime on the schedule right now may not actually end up coming to fruition anyways. But yeah, so I mean, Ravens, Bengals, that one could very much get flexed in. Chargers, Chiefs, that one could get flexed into a prime time. Then you got Packers at the Broncos. I don't necessarily expect that one to become a primetime game, but that one could be very interesting. Two teams that very well might be fighting for playoff seeding, even if it's just a wild card spot. Rams hosting the Lions, two more teams that could be playoff contenders. And then Sunday night, you got the Cowboys hosting the Vikings. Again, I have a handful of questions for both of these teams, but if they're both able to be competitive, which, I mean, the Vikings have a really good roster. It's just a question of how J.J. McCarthy's going to be. The Cowboys, it's just, we know who the quarterback is. We know what a lot of the roster is. It's just the Cowboys, for me, it's more so I just personally don't know that I buy that they did much to improve. Of course, they had a pretty bad record last year, so it wouldn't be that surprising to see them improve by a little bit. I mean, they won 7 games, and that is one thing I've also heard brought up, which is a fair point. They won 7 games with Dak Prescott out for a lot of the season, so they did okay. But again, you fired McCarthy at head coach, which I think was okay, but yeah, I just don't know if I would be super hyped about their coaching situation now, the management of the Cowboys. So yeah, I don't know. That Sunday game's one that we'll see, but I wouldn't be surprised if it gets flexed out for one of these other matchups. Um, and then the Steelers hosting the Dolphins. That one could be all right. This one will depend a lot on, for the Dolphins, how well are they doing? Is Tua still healthy? How has Tyreek Hill been doing so far that season? For the Steelers, how are they doing? Do they have Aaron Rodgers? Is he still starting, playing, healthy? Those kinds of things. And again, once you get towards this part of the season, it's really hard to predict what this is going to look like. But and of course, also to mention with that Sunday night game, Vikings Cowboys. Of course, the Cowboys being a huge market team, the biggest brand in the NFL, it's quite possible that even if this is a game that's not the most exciting, this might stay in prime time, possibly. For Week 16, we've got to start the week. We have the Seahawks hosting the Rams. I think that's a good start to the week. And this is where we start getting some Saturday games mixed in. This Saturday I'm really excited about, of course. Firstly, for Bears hosting the Packers. This could be a game I possibly go to yet again. This would be, if I did go, this would be two Bears-Packers games in Chicago in a row for me. But we'll see. It's December 20th, so that's the Saturday before Christmas, so we'll see about actually going. But this will be a fun Saturday game, and then, of course, also with that, the Eagles and the Commanders. So two very big rivalries. Of course, hopefully all four of these teams are doing good, all maybe even in the playoff picture still, or at least alive for it. Of course, of those four, yes, admittedly, the Bears least likely to be in that, but I just hope the Bears are, obviously as a fan, the main thing you can hope for in a year is to see improvement. Certainly if your team has had a losing record and is now on a new coach, but I've got a lot of excitement for the Bears. And this will be the second time in 3 weeks that the Bears-Packers will have played. That's another theme about this schedule I haven't really gotten into much in this video, but very common thing if you look at a lot of teams' schedules, they will have at least one of their division rivals where the NFL has scheduled two of their games or both of their games within a 3-week span. So it seems to be a pretty common thing the NFL has decided they like to do now, which makes sense in the sense that, obviously you're not going to have two division rivals play each other back-to-back weeks, but, it makes sense to want to try to push some of those rivalry games closer together because then you can have a lot more of a fresh storyline going into the second game. This game, if for the Bears Packers 2 weeks prior, for Bears Packers 2 weeks prior, whichever team wins, whatever the storyline ends up being coming out of that game, only 2 weeks later you're going to get a rematch. So obviously that'll make rematches of division games interesting in that sense. So I can see why they're doing that, but it's common. If you look at a lot of schedules now, most teams will have one of their division rivals where their games are within a very short span. For Sunday, not a ton of crazy looking matchups, honestly, in my opinion. A lot of run-of-the-mill matchups that don't really excite me. Sunday night, Dolphins, Bengals. Makes sense why this one would get put in Sunday night, at least for now. And then Colts hosting the 49ers. To be fair, the Colts haven't really gotten much of any love as far as prime time this season. One of those teams that's pretty low on the amount of prime time games they've been assigned. So, fair. But I don't know. This one doesn't excite me too much. So, moving on to Week 17. This will be right around New Year's, right after Christmas as well. We have, of course, Christmas itself to start off the week on Thursday. So we got 3 games on Christmas. Just like Thanksgiving now, the NFL is moving full steam ahead with, we don't care that Christmas used to be the NBA's day. We're treating it like Thanksgiving now. NBA, do your thing, but we're going to take as many views as we want. Of course, with 2 of the games being on Netflix, that's another thing that was new last year. I know people aren't loving the fact that it's on Netflix, but thankfully for myself, I've got Netflix, so it works out. It's all right. I know the Netflix streams for sports, whether that's been NFL or fighting, other things, haven't had the greatest track record, so hopefully Netflix can get their sports broadcasting game going up and improved by Christmas Day. But yeah, so for Christmas Day, we'll start off with the Cowboys on the road against the Commanders. So that one will be a good one to start. And then you got the Vikings hosting the Lions, and then to round out the night, you'll have the Chiefs hosting the Broncos. So also all some pretty interesting games. I do think it's also interesting that, again, with the NFL treating Christmas kind of like Thanksgiving now, it's not necessarily a stated tradition yet as far as like specific teams that always are going to play on Christmas, but the Chiefs will now have played Christmas twice in a row. And then for this year, at least, you've got the Cowboys and the Lions who both play Christmas and Thanksgiving. So, and of course for Thanksgiving, those 2 teams, it's traditional that they always play and they play at home. But here for Christmas, both the Cowboys and Lions will be on the road. So that's an interesting dynamic. Of course, that Christmas night game, that will be on Amazon Prime. And then for Sunday, you don't get too many games that are in that slot right now. But one of those, Bears at the 49ers, that one is currently slated for Sunday night. That one I'm excited for because, of course, it's a primetime game. It's Bears, 49ers. I do like when both those 2 teams play. I have some relatives that are 49ers fans, and this one's one of the games that, again, I keep mentioning some of these Bears games I'm considering going to. This one's another one that I'm considering possibly making a trip out to San Francisco to go see. So that one would be interesting. Of course, it's right around the holidays, so that's one of the tough things as far as deciding to go to that game. But then Monday night, we got the Falcons again on Monday night, this time hosting the Rams. Could be good. Again, especially if the Falcons are alive for the playoffs at this stage. That will have meant they've been interesting enough throughout the rest of the season, at least for what they need to win in the NFC South. So yeah, this could be 2 teams that are live and well for the playoffs, at least vying for wild card spots. Maybe let's say the 49ers are leading the chase for the NFC West, and the Bucs are leading the chase for the NFC South. Maybe both of these 2 teams are fighting over a wild card spot. And of course maybe still trying to stay alive to win their division. But so yeah, that could make that Monday night game interesting. And then you have a few games right now for Week 17 that are just listed as flex games. They're totally TBD, so these are some games that very much could get flexed into those primetime slots. Either that or they'll end up into the Sunday or Saturday as well. So, you've got all of them down here towards the bottom. Of course, the most interesting of those to me would be the Packers hosting the Ravens and then the Chargers hosting the Texans. Those could all be playoff teams playing for position. A sneaky one in there, Bengals, Cardinals. I think that one could be a high-scoring game. If the Cardinals maybe are in the wild card race, that one could be an interesting one. I certainly expect the Bengals to be in the race for the playoffs. But of course, at this point, this is Week 17, so at this point, there are going to be some teams already eliminated at this point in the season, so we'll just have to see. And then for the final week of the 2025 regular season, of course, All these games are currently going to be listed as flex games. The final week of the season, the NFL just completely openly waits till that week to schedule them. It's something that I think is actually kind of fun about the end of the season is that you get week 17, and as week 17 starts to wrap up, again, you get that much closer to the final playoff picture. And then basically the way week 18 gets scheduled, of course, is just whatever games have the most stakes as far as having any impact on that playoff seeding, anything that isn't set in stone yet, those games get put into primetime slots. So, and of course, this is the week that every game is a division game. So that makes it interesting as well. It's honestly pretty difficult to pick out the best games in here, at least right now. Again, we don't know what's going to happen, but because it's all division rivalry games, it can be tough to decide which games look the most exciting. Of course, for me, Bears-Lions, that one stands out. I mean, they didn't quite bookend it for the Bears and Lions, but the way the schedule worked out, you've got week 2 and then the final week of the season. So pretty much bookending the season, you've got the Bears-Lions, Ben Johnson game. So that'll be interesting. Other ones that sound most likely to be interesting to me, of course, Vikings, Packers, of course, any NFC North game is going to be interesting personally. I do think also, again, NFC North had 3 playoff teams last season, all excluding the Bears. One of the best divisions in football last year and in NFL history, really. So certainly could be a very interesting division yet again. I certainly hope so. More interesting in the sense that the Bears are better this year, would be my hope. You got the Eagles hosting the Commanders. That one could be a good one. Maybe it's a game for the division. Then you've got the 49ers hosting the Seahawks. That one could be a good one. Those are probably the ones that stand out the most. But again, these are all division games. So whatever division is open, you still have, you got Falcons hosting the Saints. You've got Tampa hosting the Panthers. If maybe the Falcons and Buccaneers are still in it, maybe it's a situation of, hey, whichever team wins the division, or, it would be whichever one's holding seat wins, and then the one that's second would need to cheer for the other to lose and them to win. You might get an interesting dynamic there. So I do want to look at a couple schedules, including the 49ers, being that I promised that earlier in the video. For the 49ers schedule, as I mentioned, it's been talked about because it's based off strength of schedule from 2024. They've got the easiest schedule, and I do think it's pretty hard to find a ton of losses in here. You've got the Seahawks, Saints, Cardinals, Jaguars, Rams, Buccaneers, Falcons, Texans, Giants. You got the Rams, Cardinals, Panthers, and then the Browns, and then you've got your bye late on in the season. That's a pretty late bye, but certainly for a team that's if they're alive for the playoffs, that can be a good one in the sense that you get a bye only a few weeks before the playoffs start, so you can get some rest a little closer to that. And then Titans, Colts, Bears, Seahawks. I mean, that's a lot of pretty easy games. I mean, outside of the Rams, the Buccaneers, Texans, and of course you got the Rams twice. Those are really the only games that you have against playoff teams from 2024. So obviously that right there shows why this schedule is looked at as being so easy. And 49ers have a good amount of primetime games. They've got a lot of late Sunday games, of course, being they're on the West Coast. So they'll get a lot of games in the spotlight. I do think the 49ers are going to be good. How good, I don't know. I mean, thing is, though, with under Kyle Shanahan, they've had no in between. It's either been double-digit losing season, or they've made it to the playoffs, double-digit wins, and they've made it at least to the NFC Championship. So that's kind of a weird dynamic with this era of 49ers football. So I think it's way more likely they get double-digit wins than double-digit losses. So with that being said, I wouldn't be surprised if they make it to the playoffs and at least are interesting in the playoffs. So yeah, I do have some questions about the 49ers, but they secured paying Brock Purdy. They've paid a lot of important players this year. I think they learned a little bit of a lesson last year from waiting so long to pay Brandon Ayuk, and then having to spend what they did last second. They've had to lose Deebo Samuel to free agency this year, losing him, but yeah, I mean, so you no longer have him on the team, but yeah, and you had some other key losses, but they've done a lot better this year at signing some of their veteran players. They've still got like George Kittle in there. They should have Christian McCaffrey back healthy this year. Obviously, that hurt the 49ers season a lot last year as well. I mean, they still were able to run the ball pretty well. That being said, but still, it's not the same. Of course, we'll have to see with the severity of the injuries that he was dealing with last year. Will Christian McCaffrey look the same now? And having aged a little bit more as well, of course. But either way, with this easy of a schedule, I think it's pretty easy to see the 49ers making the playoffs, getting double-digit wins in the regular season, and quite possibly winning at least a game or two in the playoffs. But yeah, so I'm going to end it off there, looking at that schedule. Tougher schedules, you got the Giants. They've got a really tough schedule. But yeah, if you've made it this far through the entire schedule, looking at this 49ers schedule as well, let me know down below. Are there any other teams you would like me to react to their specific schedules? What do you think of this NFL 2025 schedule? How did the schedule makers do for your specific team? Let me know all that down below in the comment section, and I will see you in the next video.